Hello everyone and welcome to this year's debate. My name's Anna and I am the MEDWAY coordinator. It's traditional here at Christchurch SU that the MEDWAY coordinator take on the role of mediating each debate. So that's what I'm here to do for you today. Clearly though, we couldn't run a normal debate structure this year. We can't put all our candidates around the same table. So instead we've decided to change things around. Each group of candidates, based on their position that they're running for, has been given a Q&A session with myself. We've asked them very specific questions around their roles that they're running for, and we've also given each candidate an opportunity to give us a video that outlines their manifesto and the most important things to them. That's what you're going to be seeing in the next few minutes. So we hope this will give you an opportunity to get to know who your candidates are and what's most important to them. Don't forget that you can also find all of their information, their manifestos and their contact details if you wish to ask them further questions on our website at ccsu.co.uk. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Maddie, your current Student Union's President of Sport and Engagement, and I am now rerunning for the new position, Engagement and Sports. This certainly has been a year I'll never forget, and I won't lie when I say it hasn't been an easy journey. However, I've continued to stay as hard-working as possible, and I like to think I've been as positive but as realistic for our incredible student community who have pulled together and worked incredibly hard with us during a pandemic. The next step is to rebuild our physical community and come back bigger, better and stronger. I have three main manifesto points. The first one is engagement. I want to widen and enhance the Student Union's engagement. The second one is sport. This year is about rebuilding the Team Christchurch community, getting our teams and clubs back playing, back training, doing what we love. And the third one is well-being. I think this is going to be more important than ever to focus on our well-being after the year we've had. It's proven that physical activity helps your mental health, and so really working on that with the university and the Community Diversity and Inclusion Officer. This was a very, very quick snapshot of what I aim to do next year. Please do check out my manifesto for more details, and then please do drop me a message on my Facebook or my Instagram account, and I'll be super happy to chat to you and discuss some plans. But yeah, I hope that I'm your engagement and sport president next year, and I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's Beth here and I am running to be re-elected as your President of Campaigns and Societies 2021 to 2022. So the past year has been an absolute rollercoaster for all of us. Last year on results night I made you three promises: to build bridges, to celebrate success and to develop together. I've worked really hard for societies this year. I introduced one-to-ones where I met with all societies on an individual basis. I reintroduced society takeovers, and I've worked really hard to make myself as accessible as possible to them this year, giving them the support when they need it, and worked to reduce the wait time they have for any questions. We've worked really hard to celebrate their successes and to support them throughout the pandemic. I've also loved running campaigns this year. Some of the campaigns I've run include Period Awareness Week, Day of International People with Disabilities, Time to Talk Day, Mental Health Day and Trans and Non-Binary Awareness Week. So, what do I want to do for you next year? I want to empower students to run more campaigns and enable their voices to be heard. I will listen to the concerns of students and coordinate campaigns at both the local and a national level. I want to expand on campaigns I ran this year, including Trans and Non-Binary Awareness Week and Period Awareness Week. And I want to work with the other presidents to lobby the university for more funding for student experience, including for sports provision and for wellbeing provision. For our societies, I will continue with society one-to-ones, making sure that every society feels like it has the support right from the beginning of the year and to be successful throughout the year. I will also continue to work with the President of Engagement and Sports on building the bridge between societies and sports teams and their relationship. I also want there to be no financial barriers for people wanting to join a sports team or societies, so we'll work to subsidise membership for those who are facing hardship. I also want to introduce more comprehensive training covering a wider range of topics including unconscious bias, disability inclusion and trans and non-binary awareness. When we're able, I also pledge to work 1 day a week at Medway so that there's more of a union presence at the Medway campus and students can come to speak to us directly about any issues they are facing. I also want to continue to fight for our students at Medway, including better wellbeing provision for our students on placements, more student spaces and more local partnerships. I want to hold a bigger and better Freshers event. Students have not had the experience they deserve this year, so I want to hold a bigger event for both new and returning students to have the experience that they deserve. This year I have worked at full capacity to support our students. Believe in Beth and I will strive to offer you the experience that you deserve.
All right, so first up then we have campaigns and societies and engagement and sport. So Beth and Maddie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Beth, would you like to introduce yourself and tell me what position you are running for?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name's Beth Elwood and I'm running for the position of President of Campaigns and Societies.
Lovely. And Maddie?
Hello, I'm Maddie and I'm running for the position of Engagement and Sports.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to kickstart then. Our first question is going to go to Beth. And my first question is, what would be your number one priority if elected?
So this year it's been a strange year for all of us, and we've really brought to the forefront campaigns. We've really tried to focus on both local and national campaigns and fighting for what students want. And I think one thing I put on my manifesto, which is really important, is more student-led campaigns. So we want to empower students to have their voices heard and give them the tools to be able to run campaigns. And obviously, as well as doing them ourselves and get involved with NUS as at a national front, other unions, and also things that are important to us. For example, this year I did period poverty, so I'd love to do that again next year. But empowering students to have their voice heard as well, I think is really, really key. And hopefully that if I am re-elected, it's something I'll be able to give to the students next year.
Lovely, thank you very much. Maddie, same question. So what would be your number one priority if elected?
So for me, I think my main priority would be engagement. I've managed to do a lot of work on it this year. I think making the sporting model both physically and financially accessible to all students is really, really important. And then on top of that, just the wider engagement, making sure that we're engaging the non-engaged through like Union on Tour, the Medway breakfasts, things like that. I think they're really important things to consider.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Okay, so next question to Beth again. So what do you think needs to change at the university post-COVID?
I think this year has brought a lot of issues to light. So we've worked really closely with the university this year, but there's been, problems with communication. That is a massive one. Students find things out way after they're meant to, or they don't find things out at all. And this year has really proved how vital that is. When you can't go and speak to your lecturers in person or go and have a meeting with them just when you want on campus, you rely on social media and emails to find things out. We have had a couple instances this year where students have been severely let down by the university because of communication, and that's something that's really important. And we say every meeting when we meet the university, and students say it all the time, just be honest with us and tell us the truth. And I think that's really important, so that students aren't left in the dark. And that would solve a lot of the problems that students do have. Is just if the university communicated a lot more and more clearly. So yeah, I think that's the thing they really need to work on, and hopefully we can, if elected, work on next year.
Lovely, thank you. Maddie, same question to you. So what do you think needs to change at the university post-COVID?
I feel like I'm going to be saying the same thing over and over again, but just making sport more inclusive to all. I think making it physically and financially available for all of our students. I think that sport is often overlooked, and I think there are so many benefits that it can bring to every student. It's not necessarily getting involved with a sports club either, it's just doing something, whether that's walking to your uni lectures, just getting involved in any way possible. I think it's really going to be something I'm going to be pushing next year.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm actually going to field the next question again to you, Maddie, just to make it fair. So what would you offer to students based at the Medway campus?
So I've actually really enjoyed working at the Medway campus this year. I think something I wanted to mention was noticing that they're very different campuses and they both have very different needs. I think from speaking to the Medway students, they want different things to the Canterbury students in general. A lot of them are placement students, a lot of them are student parents. The list is endless, but I think it's recognising that and actually going off what they want. So I think more of the Medway breakfasts. I've thought of a campaign called Move for Medway. I'd love to get that going up there. And just noticing that there are different campuses and actually speaking to the students to know what they want.
Fantastic, thank you. And Beth, same question. So what would you offer to students based at the Medway campus?
Well, I'm going to echo Maddie a little bit here. It is making sure that we realise the differences between Medway and Canterbury. I think historically, we've tried to apply the same approach as University and a Union to Medway, and this year has really, been really great to try different things. And Anna, you've been working hard there. For me, it's about understanding that the experience of students at Medway, whereas we can say, experience here, engagement here is all about getting involved in events and societies and sports teams. One thing that's really stuck to me this year is that actually what Medway students really want to focus on is that academic side. Just getting that right means the world to them. And another completely different area is student spaces at Medway, and it's something I'm working on at the moment with one of the Medway officer. And yeah, I've really enjoyed the union council mandates that have come. There's a lot of things to work on in all sorts of areas at Medway. I think it's really recognising that you can't use the same tactics or same approaches you use in Canterbury to Medway. It's a very different range of students with different needs, and just accepting the differences and praising the differences at the end of the day and tailoring our work to that.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, so this next question is specifically for Beth. How would you support societies?
So this year has been the worst year that I think any of us can say for engagement generally, but societies have had it tough. I just want to take a second to say well done societies, because you've kept activity going in the hardest time. So next year I've tried to communicate to societies, and this is what I'll continue to communicate, is there's the chance now for a brand new start of the year, brand new blank canvas, to really push an engagement and how they want to engage with members. The society community has thrived this year. Societies, and I will extend that to sports teams as well, who traditionally would never have communicated with each other or never teamed up, are finding new and innovative ways to engage members and use that online community. And I really do hope that continues. In regards to supporting societies, I've done society one-to-ones this year and presidents meetings, and it's been really great to speak to them on a personal level, and I really have got to know all societies and all the presidents, and it's been really lovely. And that's something I hope whoever gets this role next year, and I know I would continue and have that personal level and that relationship. It's just so key, and it shows that societies are valued and they can communicate with the union.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Okay, next question goes to Maddie. How would you go about increasing and diversifying students' engagement with their union?
Good question. I think it's really important, and it's something that I think needs to be worked on massively amongst all unions. I think for me, Union on Tour is a really good one, because it means that you're then engaging the non-engaged, you're meeting the people that are just walking into lectures, getting more of an understanding of what they actually want, because you'll find quite a lot of students, it's not about getting them involved with a society or sport, it's just about helping them where we can, whether that's in our advice centre or with their education side of things. I think it's just knowing that we are there. I think a big part of it as well is knowing who we are is a big thing. And so just, Union on Tour is a massive push for me when we can get back physically on campus next year.
Lovely. Could I ask you just to explain to some of our students who might not have come across Union on Tour, some of our students who won't have seen it, what it actually involves?
Yes. So Union on Tour is basically when the 4 SABs can get out onto campus, and normally I think we'd have a subject that we'd be targeting each week, and that can vary depending on what we're campaigning on. But it's just literally just being there for students, just for a chat. Literally as simple as that, just showing our faces, just showing that we're there and being there to listen, really.
Nicely put. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Maddie. Okay, next question goes back to Beth then. What campaigns do you think the union should be running?
I mean, should be is a funny word. You know, at local and national level, this year especially has brought out issues that have been going on for years, you know, around the fees, rent, things like that. So on a national front, and what we have been working towards is a joint campaign with other unions to say, actually, the fees are way too high. And although we can't fix that at local level, that's something that we should always be fighting on a national front to, you know, help our students with. And moving forward, it's something that needs to be progressed year on year. On a local level, you know, well-being is huge. Everything we do at the union has well-being underlined in it. Like, things that I've done this year that I want to replicate next year are things around period awareness and day-to-day issues that students might not think of, or we might not think of. But actually, you know, when I did the period awareness week, I gave out free sanitary products and delivered them door to door. And the emails we got, yes, it was only maybe 20, 30 students, but say, you know, that has literally changed my whole year. It's something I couldn't normally afford. And it's thinking about, yes, okay, it's something that maybe doesn't affect all students, but it makes a huge impact to the students it does affect. Another one is, you know, awareness campaigns. So Trans and Non-Binary Awareness Week has, as far as I'm aware, it's not something that's been done before. And we did it last week, and the reception we got was absolutely insane. So awareness campaigns and like disability awareness is another one we've done. I think we need to make sure we're fighting on all fronts to make sure, you know, awareness campaigns, wellbeing campaigns, and national campaigns, and that is what is going to make the union stand out and really drive forward their success next year.
Lovely, thank you very much. And next question from Maddie. How would you support sports clubs if elected?
So I love my sports clubs. That's the first thing I want to say. They've been really kind of supportive of me throughout this year. I think that's important to recognise, very understanding of the rules and everything we've had to put in place. And so I think next year is all about rebuilding the community, getting them back training once government guidance permits, getting them back playing. I think it's important just that we get that community going and flourishing, doing what it's best at, I suppose. And then I would continue my committee drop-ins, my one-on-ones, and just be there generally to support wherever possible.
Lovely. Okay, so this next question is for both of you. So I'm going to field it first to Maddie. So how would you bring societies and sports clubs together?
Oh, I love this question. So I think Beth and I have actually worked really well on this year, if you don't mind me saying so. I think it's really important, again, with societies, a bit like the campuses. I think it's remembering that their societies and sports are very different, but it's about building the bridge between them, so you can bring them closer. And I think there's, you know, I think sometimes sports teams can get a bit of a bad name, but actually I think this year we've proven that, you know, Beth, that we can work together and that it's much better when we do work together. So I think it's just important to recognise the differences and just start to build that bridge even more. And I really hope that continues next year, whoever's in the role.
Anything to add to that, Beth? Yeah,
like echoing Maddie, you know, and I said this last year in my debate, and I'll say it this year, I used to be terrified of sports teams. I know societies feel the same way in that they seem like this big beast, but actually, you know, they're people and they're students just like us. You know, Maddie and I, polar opposites, right? Maddie from sports background, me completely society, and we get along so well. And we have found that working together close this year actually has broken the divide. You know, we do joint campaigns, we've done joint events, and we've seen that reflected in society and sports teams activity. You know, society's been so much more physically active this year. Maybe that's due to COVID, but I think also a huge impact of that has come from teams. And I know teams have been supporting society events and their fundraising. So, you know, it's been absolutely incredible. I think, you know, having a great working relationship between the two SABs does reflect on the teams. And it's something we continue to push, these joint events, these joint fundraising. I just think it's worked so well. And again, whoever gets this role next year, it's something that absolutely needs to continue, and I really hope it does.
Lovely, thank you. And our last question for Maddie. Are we going to win varsity next year, Maddie?
I would love to say yes. I mean, I suppose this year we never actually lost it, so I'll take that as a win.
I think it's more about rebuilding varsity, getting it back up and going, and just getting the importance for our freshers who haven't experienced varsity this year, about how actually important varsity is. I'd love to get more people involved with varsity. I think for us, Christchurch is massively about the participation. I think even the Brit 2021 challenge that we're doing at the minute has proven that we have got so many students involved with that. And, Kent are running a similar competition at the minute, and we're actually winning against them if you compare our miles. So not that I'm competitive, but I think, at Christchurch, it is a lot about participation, but I would equally love to win.
Lovely. Right. Thank you so much, guys. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to add before we leave it there?
I've got one thing, if that's okay.
Go for it, Beth.
One thing we haven't really touched on is about experience as a whole next year. And I think Maddie will probably echo what I say, in that experience and wellbeing is a huge part of my manifesto and what I want to do next year. We recognise that students in first year, especially, well, all years, but those new students were robbed of their student experience this year. At the end of the day, they didn't have their freshers, they didn't get to meet people, and that's something that's so important to focus on next year, and we absolutely recognise that they deserve that. So it will depend on restrictions and everything like that, but whatever we do, we want it to be bigger and better. Say we, as if I'm talking to Maddie. I want it to be bigger and better next year, and massive focus on well-being and getting students the experience they deserve.
Lovely. Maddie, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just probably what Beth has said there. I have a massive section on my manifesto about well-being. I think it's been proven that physical health can help your mental health, and I'm a big believer of that, and I will really look to push that next year.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Brook, and I would like you to vote for me as President as Community Diversity and Inclusion for CCCU University. Now, as someone who is BAME myself, I'm someone who has had experience working with SEN students in the FE sector, and also working as someone in the Labour Party as a disability officer as well, representing people in the borough of Bexley. Now, a question I think everyone wants to ask is, what can I do for you? What I can do for you, and the position that if you decide to vote for me for, is in terms of diversity. And when I mean diversity, I mean being more inclusive. Being inclusive with people, ideas and society. The other thing as well, what I can do is also represent you, the students, your needs and what you need from the university. Because in this time, even though we are coming out of lockdown, there's been a lot of challenges. Everything from mental health to finances to support for community organisations on the CCCU campus. And what I hope to do is be that balancing factor between you, the students, and the university, and to be encompassing that within that framework so that you can be represented. And also on top of this, I hope as we transition out of lockdown is to have mental health support for people that need it, support people who are LGBTQ, and also support everyone in the university as a community, because while you're here, we're here to learn, but we're also here to expand ourselves through many different things, from being on-site to off-site. And hopefully, let us have a new normal, not an old normal.
Hi, I'm Frankie, and I'm running to be elected for the President of Community, Diversity and Inclusion for 2021 to 2022. I've been a student at Christchurch for 5 years, and within these 5 years, I was part of badminton and show choir. I was Vice President and Social Sec for badminton and Social Sec for show choir. I was able to be part of the Youth Sec Committee and a SOC representative for the Union Council. I want to ensure that there's a housing accreditation scheme to replace Homestamp to make sure that students get the accommodation they need. I will work with Kent County Council and Kent Police to ensure students feel safe at night. I want to continue to work with street marshals and pop-up pubs. I will continue to work to get on-campus nursery to support our student parents. I want to focus on the BAME attainment gap and work with the union and university to address this. I would like to also work closely with the BAME student network. I want to work with the estates and facilities to make sure our catering outlets are accessible for everyone. I want to work with the LGBT Society to hold events that are fun and educational for LGBT History Month and Pride. I want to work with young sabbatical officers to run campaigns such as sexual health, drug awareness and consent. If I'm elected as your president of CDI, I will make sure that every student voice is heard. If elected, I will give the role my all. I am passionate about our university and the students within it. I really hope you vote for me for your future President of Community, Diversity and Inclusion. Hashtag vote for Frankie and make sure you choose me as your number one.
Hi, I'm Bethan O'Day and I'm running for the position of President of Community, Diversity and Inclusion in this year's elections. My name is Bethan, but I usually go by Beth or Oh dear. And I'm a master's student here at the university studying clinical psychology. For me as your president, you're voting for a very passionate, driven and ambitious individual, and I will strive to do my best for you. Creating a stronger relationship with the likes of the Kent Police and other security organisations to make sure that when our students are in the community in Canterbury that they are safe and well. It includes working with organisations that support victims of sexual violence trauma. It's also important that we work with local healthcare organisations to encourage our students to go for smear testing and to understand the importance of it. We also need awareness and resources for students regarding the following topics: STIs, men's mental health, pregnancy and safe sex including consent. Students who menstruate shouldn't have to go through this. Their education should not be affected by something that we can easily resolve together as a community. In terms of diversity and inclusion, it's extremely important that our underrepresented groups are no longer underrepresented. In support of LGBT+ students, Black, Asian and ethnic minority students, disabled students, parents and carers, and those with special educational needs, I want to ensure that your diversity is celebrated and you genuinely do experience inclusivity and that there is a network there to support you. Whether this be through campaigning awareness, a support network, events where you get to meet students with the same experience as you. It's all about making sure that we celebrate your diversity and that you are fully supported. It's also important that we have transparency with the university about how they are investing in these groups. And finally, in terms of sustainability, if I were to be elected, I would like to ensure that students have the resources and knowledge in order to live a more sustainable life whilst at this university, to be able to get involved in community projects within the Canterbury area. I'd also like to ensure that the Sustainable Development Goals created by the UN are something that we focus on in terms of our sustainability efforts at the university. But we can create an environment where all students have a strong sense of belonging and connectedness during their time at university. Thank you for watching. Vote for O'Day.
Okay, lovely. Right, thank you both for joining us. I'm going to start by asking you to introduce yourself and tell me what course it is that you're doing. So Frankie, if you want to go first.
Hi, sorry. So I'm Frankie and I'm running for President of Community, Diversity and Inclusion.
And what course do you do, Frankie?
I am doing a master's degree in tourism and events management.
Fantastic, thank you. And Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth, also running for the same role, and I'm a master's student too, but in clinical psychology.
Lovely, fantastic. Okay, so our first question then is going to go to Frankie. So what would be your number one priority if elected?
So I believe that with this role, a lot of it is the priority, but my number one would be inclusion. I would want to work with the different student networks, such as BAME Student Network and the Disabled Student Network. Also working alongside with the LGBT Society, making sure there's more awareness and more education of the LGBT community. And I'd also like to work alongside with the President of Campaigns and Societies and the President of Engagement and Sport, to make sure that the student groups pride themselves in being inclusive, as I feel like working with all these different students will help me create a inclusive environment for them.
Fantastic, thank you, Frankie. Okay, Beth, same question. So what would be your #1 priority if elected?
So in regards to keeping everybody inclusive, completely agree with what Frankie has said. After speaking to students myself, I've noticed that particularly students from underrepresented groups don't feel that the resources that we give out at the university apply to them. So, for example, sex education for LGBT plus students, and that would be a particular focus of mine, making sure that they feel safe and included in university, and that in regards to like sexual health services, it applies to everybody. And that includes when we're giving out resources for period poverty, we're not excluding students, it's for everyone who menstruates.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to have to bring back to you, Beth, so we can keep it even. So Beth, for your next question then, what do you think needs to change at the university post-COVID?
Post-COVID, I do think that the safety and well-being of our students does need to be a priority. Prior to COVID, I was an undergraduate here, and during my time I found a main issue is that students do not feel safe, particularly when they're out during the night in Canterbury. There's a lot of issues in regards to, we need to support our students more for sexual violence trauma. We've got a great counselling service, but I would really like to focus on developing that to really support our students and make sure that they have the right support going forward for this.
Lovely, thank you, Beth. Okay, Frankie, so what do you think needs to change at the university post-COVID?
I think the communication between the students and the university need to change, especially through signposting. I know a lot of experience of communication has been affected during COVID, so I want to make sure that's a priority next year with changing. I've managed to, or I've spoken to a couple of students who weren't able to get the right disability support through their course. They weren't sure where they needed to go, and they weren't able to get that right support or get the contact for the disability team to help them through it. And I also think another aspect of this is the hardship fund. I feel like there's not a lot of conversation on it, but I believe that it's quite a long and complex process, meaning that it will put students off, and it will make students who need it the most not get the hardship fund they need. So yeah.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I'm going to stick with you for the next question, Frankie. So what would you offer to students based at the Medway campus?
So my approach for the Medway campus, my first overall thing I would like to focus on is that knowing that Medway students' needs are very different to Canterbury student needs, knowing that they need that extra wellbeing support through their placements, because I know especially through this pandemic they obviously were put on front line with not as much PPE, so I would want to make sure that I bring back the weekly Medway drop-in sessions, and also be able to make sure they have the right access to the to specialized practitioners.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, and Beth, same question. So what would you offer to students based at the Medway campus?
So historically, Medway students have felt very much like a separate entity. What I've noticed from talking to Medway students that I know, it'd be about making sure that they feel that they are truly part of this student union, that they are not just because they are on a different campus, doesn't mean that the same resources aren't there for them, that they can't have the same opportunities, and making sure that they do actually feel included. So more communication with them, more actual presence on campus as well. And hopefully that will make a more inclusive environment and encourage students at Medway to really participate in the university experience.
Lovely, thank you. And I'm just going to stick with you for the next question, Beth. So what would be your priority in terms of championing diversity and inclusion in the union and the university?
Sorry, could you repeat that again? My Wi-Fi cut out.
No worries, that's fine. So what would be your priority in terms of championing diversity and inclusion in the union and the university?
So I feel in order
to champion everybody and celebrate the diversity that does exist in our student body is to make sure that we are, as we go into a post-COVID education environment, hopefully getting students together more and more networking, so students feel that they have someone to relate to. I've recently spoken to students with special educational needs who feel this would be really important for them to be able to meet students who understand their experience. And the same goes for Black, Asian and ethnic minority students. They feel that there needs to be more encouragement for everyone to get together and, you know, have events where we celebrate the fact that everyone's different. So yeah, it would be about more getting together, even if it ends up being virtually.
Lovely, thank you, Beth. And Frankie, what would be your priority in terms of championing diversity and inclusion in the union and the university?
So I think it's more going out and talking to our students and finding out what they need and not presuming what they want. So like another thing I'd focus on would be like events, so like celebrating Black History Month, Pride, LGBT History Month. And I know this year we weren't able to do it, but then we weren't able to celebrate the One World Week, which I would like to bring to the union for next year if I'm elected in. So yeah.
Lovely, okay, thank you. I'm going to stick with Frankie for the next question. So what would you do to improve the relationship between students and the local community?
So I would create partnerships between between Kent and the students. I feel like there's lots of different ways where we can create relationship between the local community and students, in just finding ways where students are able to give back to the community. So like either having like a good neighbour scheme in where we are able to appreciate our local community, and obviously the local community can appreciate students around them. I think there's a lot of stigma with the community and the students. So I believe this will be a big one to work on this year, but I feel like it's something that we are able to work on with the way we can return to our local community.
Lovely, thank you, Frankie. And Beth, what would you do to improve the relationship between students and the local community?
I strongly believe that to do this, we need to create stronger relationships with organisations within the community in order for our students to be more involved and to create that stronger link with the general public within Canterbury. So whether that's through sustainability, you know, like getting them involved in projects to help around at different places within Canterbury, whether that's working with the council or the local police to try and really get students involved. It's all about creating those relationships in order to be able to meet more people in the community and really integrate together.
Lovely, thank you. And I'm going to stick with you, Beth, for this next question. So this role was previously called President of Wellbeing, but it is not a counselling or mental health support role. How would you approach improving students' wellbeing?
I believe that starts foremost with education about various different mental health issues, and particularly the importance on men's mental health, which has been quite undervalued in just general society, not just within the university. And I feel that if we start with that and then we encourage the development of our own counselling service, and it means that students can feel that they really can come forward with problems and we can speak about them openly and reduce that stigma that's there. So yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Amki, this role was previously called President of Wellbeing, but it's not a counselling or mental health support role. So how would you approach improving students' wellbeing?
So the first one would be focusing on, or like I mentioned before, MEDWAY, and making sure they get the right specialised practitioners for them. I would make sure I'd work along with the president of campaigns and societies and work on many different campaigns for the students. So drug awareness, sexual health, consent, period poverty, and all those. I would also like to bring back or continue the Tuesday Chill, because I know that was very popular with a lot of our students for wellbeing wise, and making sure I work with the president of campaigns and societies and president of engagement and sport with the wellbeing of our sports and our societies, and making sure that they're able to join in any of our wellbeing activities.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, so that's the end of our questions. I'm going to open it up now. Is there anything else that we've missed that you feel that is important that students hear from you about your manifesto? Anything else that you would like to work on?
So I've mentioned in my manifesto, but there was one thing I wanted to work on was a housing accreditation scheme to replace home stamp. This will allow students to be able to find housing that we recommend that are safe and right for them. I know that this was a massive help for a lot of students, home stamp before, so I'd make sure that we have another scheme in for that. And another aspect that I forgot to mention was nightlife for students and making sure that they are safe. So sorry, just my brain's overthinking. Making sure they're safe, so bringing out the street marshals, and then having the pop-up hubs, just making sure they're aware of their surroundings and where they're going after a night out, and just making sure our students are safe.
Lovely, thank you, Frankie. Beth, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, that's okay. So as I had discussed before, I briefly mentioned about safety of students and sexual violence trauma, and I also believe within that there's a lot of education. So like Frankie's mentioned about safe sex and consent, that's particularly important, and I would really like to place a focus on that. And also working with local healthcare organisations to promote education and deliver resources on things such as encouraging our students to go for smear testing, breast cancer awareness, again, men's mental health, STIs. There's particularly a massive lack of education around this, and also students who experience pregnancy whilst at university. So that would be another core focus of mine that I've mentioned in my manifesto.
Lovely, thank you very much, guys. That's fantastic. All right, if you don't have anything else to add. Fabulous, so thank you very much.
Hi guys, I'm Dan and I'm running to be your next Student Union President. Currently I am the Editor-in-Chief of Unified, Christchurch's award-winning student media. This role has given me the chance to really listen and hear the views of students and has given them a platform to be heard. I am a men's captain on the tennis team and I've been lucky enough to play in Bucks and varsity matches. Competing and representing Team Christchurch has been one of the highlights of my university experience, and I know just how important the C4 community is to students. My first manifesto point is all about coronavirus and education. I think it's vital that in September the reintegration of students is as smooth as possible. I want to make sure that if restrictions are in place, that the students' academic outcomes are protected, and if they aren't still in place, to see what elements of the online learning and blended learning we can still incorporate into students' time at university. My next manifesto point focuses on diversity and inclusion, and I want to continue to work with the university on their Closing Our Gap campaign, looking to close the degree attainment gap for our BAME students. Also, I want to continue to push diversity and inclusion in all the events that the Student Union puts on. My next manifesto point focuses on wellbeing, and I want to work with student support and wellbeing to enhance the service and to increase the capacity. I also want to look at reintroducing post-COVID Tuesday Chill, Puppy Days and other events that have been so important to students in previous years. Other things that I would like to implement include increasing the commercialisation of the Student Union to bring in as much money as we possibly can to help improve the student experience. I'd also like to work with sports teams to make sure that all membership costs are inclusive and fair. And finally, I would like to continue the Student Union's work with the LGBT+ society to support the community and also to continue hosting such important events like Q&As and awareness campaigns. So why vote me as your next Student Union President? Well, throughout my time here, I've been involved in societies, I've been involved in sports, and I've really got a sense of the Christchurch community. I think I'll bring my passion and my energy to this role, and I'd love to represent the students of Christchurch. For all of my other manifesto points, please have a look at the CCSU website. So I hope that my manifesto points resonate with you, and I would love to be your voice for the forthcoming year. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Ollie and I'm running to be your union president. You can hopefully see me here writing up on the whiteboard in my room some of the key points from my manifesto. I just really want to emphasise to you why they matter so much to me and why they should matter to you as well. Over the past year, we've really lost a sense of community within the university. It's been so difficult with everything going on, but I'm going to bring that back. I want to bring on more events for all of us to really enjoy. Having been a trustee for a while now, as well as founding my own society this year, I've seen the many challenges that the sports teams and societies are facing. But I'm going to combat this with increased recruitment drives and more events, bigger freshers fairs, bigger stalls, and really drive recruitment for next year. Another big concern for all of us recently has been student safety, not just in Canterbury but in Medway as well. Universities should be a safe environment for everyone. That's why I'm going to work on improving lighting in local areas, ensuring suitable accommodation security whether it be private or university owned, and working with local businesses to ensure our students stay safe wherever they are. On top of everything we're facing this year, we've got a national jobs crisis going on. It's been so difficult for anyone to get part-time work right now, especially students. I'm going to improve our students' employability with new skills workshops to combat this jobs crisis and build up young entrepreneurs with expert advice services directly from the student union on startups. However, by far the biggest point of my campaign is to invest in sustainability by becoming a 1% for the Planet member and a certified B Corporation, making the university and the union fully accountable and making sure that we invest in our climate and our planet. In my role as president, I'm going to make way for Medway with improved transport links across the campuses so that they can really get involved. I also want to support student reps with improved training and refreshing the SAR committee. And at the end of the day, I just love this university so much, so thank you for listening, and apologies in advance for the terrible voiceover. My throat is absolutely killing me.
Hello everyone, this is Jake Warman. I'm standing to be your Student Union President for 2021-22. One of my main promises to you. Number one, we're going to ensure that we've got a better Freshers' Fair for September. Unfortunately, last year, due to the external circumstances of COVID, we couldn't have a proper physical Freshers' Week. We're going to ensure that we've got a bigger and better one for that, especially for our first year students coming into the second year who didn't get that opportunity. Number two, I'm going to make sure that we're going to work on improving the experience for mature students, especially those who are parents, who have those other outside external commitments. And thirdly, as someone who's lived in Canterbury for 18 years, I'm someone who knows the council, who knows the local government, local businesses, and I'm the best candidate who's going to be able to liaise with those businesses, with local government in Canterbury, and I will be the best candidate to ensure that the university's experience for you will be the best. So vote for Warman. Thank you ever so much.
Okay, so thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm going to start by asking everyone to introduce themselves with your name and what course it is that you're doing. So I'll start with Dan.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan, and I currently study multimedia journalism, and I'm in my third year at university.
Lovely, thank you, Dan. Jake.
Hello everybody, my name is Jake Warman. I am currently undertaking a Masters in International Relations.
Fantastic. And Oliver?
Hi everyone, my name's Ollie and I'm in my second year doing my integrated masters in chemical engineering.
Fantastic, thank you very much, guys. Okay, so our first question, I'm going to start with Jake. So your first question, Jake, is what would be your #1 priority if elected?
Thank you for the question. #1 priority is focusing on a post-COVID recovery at Christchurch. Simply put, from the get-go, as soon as I'm elected, the term of office will begin just as we reach the 4th part of the roadmap for freedom, if you want to call it that. And that's where I want to get started on, ensuring that both students are back as safe as possible, that hopefully nearly all adults will have been vaccinated at this point, provided that the government's roadmap plan is fulfilled correctly and that nothing unexpected occurs. And hopefully by the time we are in September for the new academic year, we should be very close, if not at normality, if at all possible, which I think is important, for example, freshers. If at Freshers' Fair we are operating as normal, then we will have succeeded in restoring post-COVID normality.
Lovely, thank you very much, Jake. Okay, so Ollie, same question to you, so I'll read it again. What would be your #1 priority if elected?
Thank you, Anna. So for me, my biggest priority by far is to combat climate change in whatever I do and whatever role I've taken. And to do that in the role as union president, I would be looking to get us to become a certified B corporation, as well as becoming a 1% for the planet member. So these are two specific goals to make sure that 1% of the profit from the union goes directly towards climate causes. And being a certified B corporation puts you up there with the very best of the best in terms of companies that respond to climate action, and gives that level of transparency where all students can see from beginning to end where all our money goes and how we're combating the climate crisis. Because at the end of the day, we can all go and graduate, but if there's no jobs and there's no planet to be on, what's the point? So thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much, Ollie. Okay, Dan, same question. So what would be your #1 priority if elected?
Thank you. Yeah, I think my main priority would be a smooth reintegration of students in September. I think it's really important that, fingers crossed post-COVID, that every student is supported. And I think, at the SU, it'd be our job to make sure everyone's well-being is looked after, because, it's been a really tough year. A lot have been online, a lot of people haven't been involved in campus activities and stuff like that. So, it's obviously going to be really difficult. So it's just making sure that, the reintegration is as smooth as possible. We look out for everyone, make sure everyone's getting involved, but also looking out for everyone's well-being. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, so Ollie, the next question is going to come first to you. The next question is, what do you think needs to change at the university post-COVID?
Thank you, Anna. So what I believe needs to change most is transparency within our university. We've been fighting it for ages as a union, but you might have seen the recent example where, for example, our newest graduates weren't told that they were going to be graduating fully online. And we had to have this massive online revolt against it to get any sort of action without the union being consulted whatsoever. So by getting more transparency from the university, we can then get students more involved in their own degrees and their own programs and in how they want things to work at the university. And that's what the union stands for altogether. So for me, it's that level of transparency that really needs to change. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Ollie. So Dan, you're up next. So what do you think needs to change at the university post-COVID?
I think one of the big changes that needs to be looked into is definitely closing the degree attainment gap. I know that Christchurch, it's quite a serious concern at the moment for our Black students that, this attainment gap is one of the worst. So it'd really be working with the university on that. There's going to be hopefully lots of studies and reports into this, some professional development. And just, I know the university has a plan in place that ends, I think, it's from 2020 to 2025. So for me personally, it would just be hopefully having a role in that long change. So thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Dan. Same question to you, Jake. So what do you think needs to change at the university post-COVID?
Thank you for the question. I say it's integration in terms of integrating the university more into Canterbury itself. I sort of speak with this angle as someone who's lived in Canterbury for nearly 20 years, and I find that the university is sometimes a bit aloof from the city that it's in. It's aloof from Canterbury itself. I will say that this is probably not as bad as it's more of a city university, that we have buildings based around Canterbury itself in terms of residents, and the campus itself is closer to the city than Kent, as the easiest comparison. But I think there needs to be more cooperation and more liaisoning with Canterbury's businesses and local government.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, Dan, you're going to take the next question first. So what would you offer to students based at the Medway campus?
So yeah, through speaking to students and that, I always hear that, a lot of Medway students feel underrepresented. And, unfortunately, I've never been down to Medway, obviously due to COVID as well. So, looking forward, one of my first things, if I was to be elected, would be to definitely go down there and to speak to students to see, what their problems are, what they want to change. I think it's about involvement and communication. So, lots of trips there, communicating with students, and yeah, really involving them, lots of events there. And yeah, unfortunately, I don't know enough about that yet, but, going down there and speaking to students, then, hopefully I can find out as much as possible.
Lovely, thank you, Dan. And Jake, you're up next. So what would you offer to students based at the Medway campus?
I was going to say I'm sort of in a bit of a similar position to Dan in that I don't really know too much with the Medway campus, to be honest. I think arguably you potentially put the responsibility on previous people who have held the position, but although I think that's a bit unfair actually. But I think there needs to be that close. Again, it's communication, it's contact. If you're not there, then of course there's going to be that distance that gets built up, and the idea that students based in Medway are not being listened to. So I think it's, again, going there regularly. It's not that far on the train to get to the Medway campus. So there will be a lot of communication. So Medway students, watch out if I'm elected. Thank you very much.
Lovely, thanks, Jake. Okay, Ollie, what would you offer students based at the Medway campus?
Thanks, Anna. So from speaking to students, I'm privileged enough to already be a trustee, so I get that sort of insight into Medway that many people don't. And something that I've learned speaking to students at the Medway campus is the lack of transport links they have to get to Canterbury campus. Specifically, they know that Kent University has a bus service that goes from their Medway campus to the Canterbury campus, but our own students can't use those same buses. So for me, my first action for Medway would be to get a proper transport link, or potentially even collaborate with Kent University so that we can get bus links directly from Medway to Canterbury campus and get those students more involved. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, Jake, you are up next for this first question. So how would you support course reps to improve their course at a local level?
I was going to say, I know, for example, on my course, I'm very good friends with my course rep. It's communication is key, I think, to this one. Even if you're not taking that course, even if you're not taking a very different course that you have in the past, if you're listening often, even if it's just very small, minor aspects that need to be improved, if you know that you've always got the door open, then I think course reps will be far more likely to see you to raise any complaints that they might have, or even suggestions for improvement. So keep the door open and make sure you're always on hand. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, so Ollie, how would you support course reps to improve their course at a local level?
Thanks, Anna. So being a school rep myself for the School of Engineering, Technology and Design for the last 2 years, and having sat on the SAR board with our previous union president, Phil, I know that we used to have the committee where student representatives could speak directly to the union president on a one-to-one basis or in small meetings as a focus group in order to share their feelings and get a wider view on how the student reps are feeling across the university. And this is something that I would want to invigorate more and bring a wider SAR committee together again to speak to me and work through these issues that they have, as well as improving their training. I myself had very little training when it came to negotiating with staff or even learning what all the different terms mean in the minutes of a meeting. So having all of that put back onto the students so they get that opportunity to learn more and build more skills, I feel will be really valuable. Thanks.
Lovely, thank you. And Dan, how would you support course reps to improve their course at a local level?
Yeah, I think previously what was said was what I was going to say about training. I think training is extremely important for everyone, but yeah, communication as well. What's been said is what I was going to say, but just making sure everyone's really supported, making sure that the right people are there, that you can bring it up and everything's sorted out properly, and yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so Ollie, this next question is coming first to you. So what's the biggest challenge students are facing to their academic experiences?
Well, right now our biggest challenge is, of course, COVID-19. It's been affecting everyone massively, especially with at-home learning. From time and time again that we've seen polls across not only our university, but universities nationally. Many students are finding it very difficult to study at home, and that's regardless of the level they're at. So the biggest thing that I would want to do to combat that challenge is, of course, whilst we're already coming back on campus, is to provide additional contact hours between staff and students and get more tutorials in, as well as getting more academic societies involved in mentoring and helping students. I feel bringing our community together again with those academic societies, would allow us to really build it up. It's the same as what I've been doing with the Engineering Society, running our weekly tutorials. It really helps bring the community together and build that academic experience back up. So that's what I'd be doing. Thank you.
Lovely, fantastic. I'm going to come to Dan next. So what's the biggest challenge students are facing to their academic experiences?
Yeah, I think what's the struggles that they face, for starters, like was previously said as well, a lot of students are struggling with online learning, but also a lot of students are struggling not being able to go onto the campus. So it's looking at how you can then sort of continue, say, some of the blended learning and stuff that's going on, how you can, when students are back onto campus, some students might be really, looking forward to going back onto campus and learning like that, but there also might be students that do actually prefer the online side of learning. So it'll be looking at sort of mixing it up, and how, previously there might not have been much of that online learning. For a lot of students, they might have actually preferred that. So yeah, that sort of integration of how we can manage those two things together.
Lovely, thank you. And Jake, what's the biggest challenge students are facing to their academic experiences?
I think it's been said already to quite a strong extent that it is COVID and sort of the roadmap almost out of it, and that it could, in theory, change at any point. I hope that it doesn't. But I think the online learning experience has very much been a mixed bag, based either across different courses, different lecturers. In my course, just as an example, I think it's managed to work well because it's mainly a theoretical based course. While, however, for example, if we took photography as an example, where you would need to be in more to use the more specialised equipment, I think it's been a very big challenge. I know an individual, for example, in their first year who's found it quite difficult with sort of the not full online learning, but very much a mixed sort of system as such. In terms of, I think, combating it, I think I agree with Ollie in a lot of respects that it's academic in terms of talking to lecturers, but also the social element of, relevant societies, getting people back together, but getting people back together safely. That's the key argument. Once I think you get people back in and back involved within the community of Christchurch, then I think you will see an improvement in academic performance, hopefully. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Jake. Okay, last question then. We're going to start with Dan. So Dan, what one thing would you like to see the union doing differently?
Okay, differently. I think that's obviously a difficult question. I think the biggest thing would be communication. Just communicating, just improving that mainly, through, I've been the editor of Unified now for the past year, and I've been involved in that, and, I've got really, strong links with students, being able to hear and speak to them about their issues and have that sort of communication with them. So, I'm not saying that it's done badly, or just, what I would hopefully bring to the role would just be to, improve on that. And yeah.
Lovely, thank you, Dan. Okay, and Ollie, what one thing would you like to see the union doing differently?
For me, the one thing I'd really want to see the union do differently is increasing and diversifying our revenue. And that's not just by, selling this and that, it's by getting students more involved in the union. So I think by having, for example, we've got the Unitemp service that you can find in Augustine House. If we can get more students involved in being employed by the union to do small roles and gain those skills, then they can get in employment to have something to put on their CV, as well as having a way of contributing towards the union. I feel that will also diversify how many people we get in contact with. Something else the union struggles with a lot is getting the attention of so many students on campus, because we're not on campus currently. So by employing more students and giving more employment opportunities, then we're going to get many more students involved and interested in running with the university and with the students' union. So for me, it would be employing more students to get more involved.
Lovely, thank you, Ollie. And Jake, what one thing would you like to see the union doing differently?
I would say the one thing I would like to see being done different is more integration. I think very much the union is at a disadvantage based on its location more than anything, in that it's halfway to the campus and halfway to Augustine House, but it's not an area that I think many would go to unless they either lived in the rooms above or they had like a specific event. I think potentially there should be perhaps more of a presence either on the campus or either in Augustine House. Effort should be made in those areas. I think in that case, having a more visible presence will increase integration, will be the one thing being done differently and will be done better for students. Thank you.
That's it. You've now met all of our candidates for this year. Don't forget that you can find all of their manifestos and their contact details in case you want to ask them any further questions on our website, ccsu.co.uk. Also remember that voting starts at 9 AM on Monday the 8th of March and finishes at 5 PM on Wednesday the 10th. Our election results will be released at 5 PM on Thursday the 11th. We're really looking forward to finding out who our new sabbatical officers are, and we hope you are too. We hope this was useful, and thank you very much for joining us.